Welcome in, everyone. Do a little warm up here real quick, and we'll get rocking on our blues stuff. Hey everyone, I'm Dave Celentano with Guitar Tricks. Welcome to Wednesday night. We're doing blues, beginning blues guitar, week 5 of 7. And tonight we're going to work on some string bending ideas based off what we did last week in week 4. So I'll review all that with you in a few secs. Already got some folks checking in here. Steve from New Hampshire, cool. And then Peter, Mark B, right on. Roland, hey Roland, good to see you. And then what else we got? Russ, Terry's here. Cool. King 50. All over the place. Snowy, Nevada. Right on. Northern Nevada. Richard. Hello, hello. So go ahead and grab the curriculum. Expand the text box that's underneath your video on YouTube you're watching. And you can print out a blue URL link, the curriculum. It's just one pager. Looks like that. And I'm going to be working off of that. And real briefly, though, let's kind of go over what we did last week, because that's going to be a good basis for what we're going to do today. We're going to kind of take last week's lesson and do it with string bends. And instead of playing the 3 chords, A7, D7, E7, we're going to play them instead of as bar chords from last week. We're going to play them as little sort of like triad chords up on the top 3 strings. Now, typically a triad is a root 3rd and 5th degree of the chord, but we're having 7th chords, which have 4 notes. So what we're going to be doing is leaving one of those notes out. And I can talk to you about that too. For the folks that are interested, I'll give you a little breakdown of what's going on with those little chord shapes we're going to do. So just as a quick review from last week, hey, Richard McBride from Santa Barbara. Cool. And Zane, got a few folks from the west coast of California out there. So let's check out last week. If you missed it, you can always go find week 4 on YouTube and Guitar Tricks channel. And went like this. We had a cool little pentatonic blues ideas, just using pattern 1 of your A pentatonic scale and a little bit of pattern 2. And then we interspersed all those little licks, short little blues licks, with the chords, the 1, 4, and 5 chord in the key of A. In other words, the A7, D7, and E7. So it went like this. 2, 3, 4, 1. So all those licks, very short little ideas, they kind of have a call response type of feel to them, which is really cool to apply and try to work out and understand for playing blues. Because a lot of times these blues players, they have good phrases when they play. It doesn't sound like they're running the scales up and down, but it sounds like they're talking with their notes with the guitar. One phrase might ask a question or say something, and then the next phrase sort of responds to it. You know, like B.B. King's Thrill Is Gone, doing that with a few students. You know how it starts out like... See, that's like the first phrase. Okay, that's kind of a long phrase. What we're doing today is going to be a little bit shorter. Then the next phrase in Thrill Is Gone goes... So you want to try to talk with your notes, and that's learning, getting your scales down pretty solid where you don't have to think about them. Okay, that's step one. Then the other thing is want to throw in elements of lead guitar work. Good lead players tend to do more than just pick all the notes. They do string bends. They do releases off the bends when you go up. You come back down. They'll do pull-offs. Do hammer-ons. Okay. Also vibrato. It's real important too. So there's a lot of techniques that we can learn as guitar players, starting out and even intermediate players, to add to make your playing sound a little less stiff and robot sounding and make it sound more natural. Okay, so it's worth it to develop these techniques and to practice them, get them down. Okay, so every once in a while, I'll take a little break from my chatting and read the comments just to make sure catching everybody. And feel free to ask some questions or comments, maybe some ideas for some future lessons too. I'm all up for that, trying to please everybody. Michael's here, cool. And then James, right on, and Alonzo, right on. KK in the house. So you notice how in what we did last week, the licks kind of have a call response feel to them, like it was mentioned to you. These are shorter though. So like the first lick, and then you stop, the band plays the A7 chord, or you can do that. And then the next lick sort of responds back to that first lick. And then we go to the third lick. And then the next lick responds back. See how it kind of goes back and forth. Okay, the fifth lick. And then the sixth lick responds to that. And the sixth lick is at the end of the 12-bar form, or near the end. So it kind of has a sort of a wrap-up kind of feeling. 2, 3, 4, 1. So that kind of resolves everything. So we're going to take those ideas, folks, and expand upon them. We're going to move everything up about an octave, and we're going to play it on strings 1 and 2 up on the frets 8 and 10 as our primary residence for today. And if you think about it, your pentatonic patterns, we're not going to be playing in pattern 1 today. We'll be playing out of pattern 2. Now, most guitar players, rock, blues players, metal players, they often don't play all of pattern 2. So while it's good to know all the patterns and all the 6 strings of each one, you're going to find if you do your homework and learn solos from different guitar players that most of the time, if you're up in pattern 2, you're just going to be playing strings 1, 2, and then 3. And then most likely, if you want to go lower, instead of playing that C note on the 4th string 10th fret, most guitar players would shift back to the same note on the 3rd string 5th fret, the C note right there. And then you get these little box patterns that a lot of guitarists do when they connect the patterns. See those little boxes, you don't really have to play all 6 strings of each pattern. You connect them with those. So that's kind of what we're doing today is we're going to work with the very high box on the 1st, 2nd string on 8th and 10th fret. So listen how the first lick for today sounds like this. Okay, we're instead of sliding like we did last week. Okay, it's not exactly the same thing we did last week, played an octave higher, but it's close, it's similar, okay? So listen how that lick from last week, do, da, do, 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 do. So we're gonna try to copy similar to that. We're not gonna play that 8th fret on the 2nd string though. We're just gonna bend. Okay, you don't have to play it exactly the same. And that gives you a little variety too. So what you're playing gives you a slight different sound instead of exactly the same thing an octave higher. Heck, if we wanted to do that, we could just go do it way up there. But that's when we want to introduce you to some other concepts too. String bending's a huge part of playing blues guitar, rock, country, and heavy metal. They use string bends a lot. So what we're going to do right off the hatch, folks, is we're going to bend the 10th fret on the first string up a whole step. Okay, and usually when you do a string bend, most of you probably already know this, but you don't want to bend with one finger because it's hard. I have a hard time bending. I use 9-gauge strings to 42 on my guitars. Bending with one finger, I mean, you could do it, but it's kind of hard. Why overwork yourself? If you're bending with the third finger, use the second and maybe even the first right behind it. So I've got all 3 fingers buttered up on that string. The primary one is the third finger on the 10th fret. The other guys just butt right up behind it. And I grip the string with all 3 fingers, makes it like one big fat finger, and just bend the string up there. Okay, now check this out. How far we bend it is real important too. So you got to make sure you're bending it according to what the music says. So you notice over the arrowhead tip, it says full. Now in music terms, a full step is what that is. That's 2 frets on the guitar. So if we're bending the 10th fret, we want to go up to the note 2 frets higher. So 10 plus 2 is 12. 12th fret, folks. That's the pitch you want when you bend it. Here, I'll launch into that. If you bend too far or not far enough, it kind of sounds out of tune. You know, listen. No, that sounds bad. Or if I overbend. We want to go for the note. And then also, too, all the notes we're bending up to are chord tones. 10th fret on the, or 12th fret on the first string is the E note. That's in the A7 chord. Okay. And then it's also in the scale. So importantly, we got to make sure the notes we bend to sound good in the key we're in. Most of the time when you do a bend, the note you push up to will be in the scale. Definitely in the scale. Might not be in the chord, but that's okay. But it'll be in the scale. It should be. Okay, now what we're going to do, we bend that up a whole step. Hold it for a sec. Then try to let the note down without making any noise. And then pick 10, 8, 10, 8, 10, 8 on the first string, 10, 8 on the second string, and then 10 on the second string again. So the last 5 notes are exactly how we ended last week. Like that. Okay, that's pretty similar to what we did last week. Now, here's another deal too. What I noticed with many students, when I'm helping them with their string bends, is when the arrow goes up and you don't see a descending arrow, that means we don't want to hear the note coming down. So you're going to go up, and then you got to somehow stop the note from ringing, because you don't want this. We don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear the note come down. So what I do is this. I take my pick hand when I bend it up. When I'm ready to go to the next note, I put my pick on the string and see how that stops the note. That stops the sound. But I keep my pick on the string, so when I let it down, I'm ready to pick that string. So I don't have to reapply the pick. It's not 2 moves. It's not stop it and then let it down and pick it. That's too much. Want to try to trim the fat off of this and then be able to mute the string right when I come down. Listen. See that works? You might want to practice that. And then once it comes down, then you pick the 10-8, 10-8, back to 10 on the second string. And if you're just playing the lick by itself, it might be cool, even though the tablature doesn't say this, to add some vibrato. Okay, it's pretty simple stuff so far, folks. And then we've got the chord, A7. Instead of doing your A7 bar chord, we're going to play a little 3-note grip up here on the 8th and 9th fret. It looks like a D7 chord. If everybody's familiar with your open cowboy chords, which I'm sure most of you are, a D7 chord looks like a backwards D, right? We're going to take that shape, move it all the way up to frets 8 and 9. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to play just those 3 strings. You got to make sure all 3 of them sound clear. Okay. And we're going to do the same strum we did last week. The down, down, up, up. Okay. And then the rhythm needs to have a shuffle feel as well. The lead needs to go 1 and 2 and 3, that kind of feel, not 3 and 4 and. We don't want to play it with a straight feel because it sounds kind of silly. See, that sounds a little too basic and a little too stiff. You give it the shuffle feel where it goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. You want that swagger. That gives it a nice bluesy mojo kind of feel. Okay. So let me, after we get the chord down here, folks, you're going to do 2 downs and 2 ups. Not what it is. It's a down with a little pause and then another down and a quick up. So it's down, down, up, stop, up. Now, I know there's not a rest after that last up, but I always kind of like to stop it there. If you don't stop it, still sounds good. You can go down, down, up, like this. And then there's a rest after that last up in the first beat of the next bar. So stop that. Okay. Let me just check out the comments. Mark B saying, in my ear, the first, third, and fifth phrases end in question marks, and the following phrases resolve the tension. That's sort of the idea, Mark. Doesn't always have to be like that, but yes, you're getting the idea. That's exactly it, sir. A bang, hey, hey, hey. And then King 50 says, do you use your middle finger to mute the D string on the 7th chord or your right hand to mute it? Good point, King 50. When I'm playing that chord, we need to make sure, folks, we're strumming. We got to pay attention to the right hand. A lot of guitar players, when they start out, or even players that have been playing a while, they focus on what the left hand's doing. And the right hand, they're not putting as much time into that. Okay, the right hand is super important in many things. On rhythm guitar, lead guitar, okay? On the chords that King 50 is asking about, you want to try to just hit the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st string. Okay, but what I do is, I think you mentioned that, King 50, is the tip of my middle finger. See this middle finger? The middle one right there? When I play it on the G string, notice that the very tip of it right there is touching the D string. So, I mean, I am muting it. Good eye, good ear there, King 50. See, so it is muted. So if I accidentally hit that string with my pick, so you don't want that sound because it makes it sound incorrect because that D note is actually not part of the A7 chord. So we don't want that. You want a really clean sound of just those notes. See, the 4th string's muted. Now the 5th and 6th strings, you just need to make sure you don't hit them because that's going to make it sound not too good. Okay, good point there. So let me keep rolling. Let me play the whole piece because I haven't done that yet, so everyone can get familiar with what we're headed into today. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Kind of imagine the band you're playing with is doing this rhythm. that rhythm will work good for this. 3, 4, 1. Okay, so food for thought. This might even be a cool thing to do with a backing track once you get it down. In fact, on Guitar Tricks, there's some really cool backing tracks, jam tracks that you can practice playing leads against, practice playing your solos, practice playing your turnarounds like we were talking about the last couple weeks prior to today's lesson. And they're in the jam station in the toolbox in Guitar Tricks. So unfortunately, the backing tracks don't have links that I can share publicly right here. But when I'm working with my students, I just walk them, show them how to get into the toolbox. And in the toolbox, there's a lot of neat apps in there, like the jam station with all the backing tracks. It's got a chord finder, a scale finder, a tuner, a lot of good stuff for tools for learning the guitar and being a musician. Okay, so I just kind of walk my students, show them how to get into that. And then there's a ton of backing tracks in different genres: country, blues, jazz, rock, etc. Okay, so back at the ranch, folks. So the first lick and the chord, you might want to just practice that to get the hang of it before you move on. Okay, even though I played the whole thing, you want to make sure you're getting each part of it down solid first, rather than kind of feebly playing the parts and it's kind of never sounds good. Just camp out on the first lick and the first chord and loop them like this. I'm going to play it 3 times in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Again. Okay, see, it's good practice just to make sure you can do the lick and go into the chord. That's a big part of playing blues guitars. A lot of the guitar players can go back and forth between licks and chords, especially if you're playing rhythm guitar in your band and the singer's singing. Well, when they stop singing, you could stop playing rhythm and play a little blues lick real quick and then come back in with the rhythm. This is great practice to build you up towards that. Hello, Ryan Durst. What's happening from West Virginia? Hope you're doing good, Ryan. Okay, so let's move on to the second lick and the second chord. Okay, the second lick's a little different, still up in the 10th and 8th fret area. Okay, this one starts on the second string, 10th fret, then the first string, 8th fret, and then look at the 10 with the bend on the first string. Notice that the arrow goes up and then it comes back down. So we're actually going to pick it going up. We're going to let it back down. And then the 10 actually still rings when we come down. In this case, you don't want to touch and mute the string like I was showing everybody on the first lick. Okay, this one, you don't want to do that. You want to go. Okay, and then end it with. So all together. You got that. Okay, pretty simple stuff. And notice that each of these licks so far is ending on this note. Anybody know what that note is? That's your A. That's your root. Okay, the roots always sound great to end on. Okay, so you got. And then the chord following that idea, folks, is the same A7. So what you might want to do, what you should do, is practice the second lick to the A7 chord again. Just loop that. I'll do this one 4 times. And then this lick comes in on the end of beat 1. So we're going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 4 and 1. One more time. Okay, and then maybe before you even get on to the next part, because the next part is very similar to what we've already done. So make sure you can play all 4 bars that we just did. The first lick, the chord, and then the new lick we just did. Okay. This is a good way to practice, folks. This is how I work on anything I'm learning new, no matter what style it is. When I'm working on a new piece, I always work on pieces of it, little chunks, and then I take those little chunks, put them together into bigger chunks, but not the whole thing yet. And then I make sure that each section sounds good. And then ultimately at the end, you try to wrap it up, put it all together, pull it together and play it together. So let's make sure we got the first 4 bars down. I'll just do it 2 times for everybody. Okay, here we go. 2, 3, 4, 1. You know that sounds? Try it again. 2, 3. Oh, and the first lick, if I didn't mention it earlier, the first idea comes in on beat 2. So 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so just make sure you're comfortable with those parts. And if you can too, folks, it's always nice to tap your foot. You can hear me, I'm always doing that when I play. It's a really good way of keeping the beat. Okay. Okay, let's move on to what is bar 5 in the tablature. We're going to do bar 5 and 6. Now, check out, each bar is the section that's divided up between the vertical bar lines. So each bar has a bar number in the upper left corner of it. So bar 1 is it's actually the pickup bar. And then what would be normally the first bar in our 12-bar blues, they're calling that bar 2, 3, 4. Now we're on bar 5. And then down to the next line, bar 6, the lick going into the D7. Okay. Oh, Roland. Yep. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. And Chris K saying, late again from Brisbane. Cool. Yep. Taking small parts. You're very welcome, Chris. Small little chunks. I'm just trying to help everyone out because a lot of my students, when I work with everybody, they tend to try to do a lot when we should probably camp out on a little bit, make sure each little bit sounds good. Okay. So moving on, look at bar 5. It's actually something we've already done. Look back in the 2 licks we've already done. You notice that bar 5 is exactly like bar 1. Okay. Okay. And then you go over to bar 6, the end of the lick that we just played is different in bar 6. What we're going to do there, it looks like there's a tiny 9 on the 3rd string. You can use your middle finger. And we're going to slide back to the 7th fret. And the little tiny 9 is a ghost note. That means we're going to pick it, but we're not going to hear it. All we want to hear is the slide sound into the 7th fret. Okay. So practice that for a sec, just the slide. Okay. And then the fingerings that I'm using, if you look at your notes up above in the treble clef staff, on the left side of all the little black dots are numbers on most of them. Those numbers on the left side are your fingers that I would recommend you to use. Finger 1 is your index, middle is 2, rings 3, pinky is 4. Okay. So we got 7 with a fast slide back to, a 9 with a fast slide back to 7. Okay, so let's play that whole lick with the slide at the end. And then the next chord, it says D7. Okay, let's talk about something for a minute though. Check this out. Remember how the ending note of the first licks we did was this? 10 on the 2nd string. 10 on the 2nd string again. That was the A note. Went with the A chord. Okay, obviously it's the root. Now the next chord is a D7. Okay, but we want to not end on the A, even though it wouldn't sound bad because there is an A in the D7 chord. It's the 5th degree, if you know your theory. Don't worry about it if you don't. Okay, but let's go ahead and change it up just so we got a little variation here. What is that note? 3rd string, 7th fret. Okay, and before you even start working on theory, it's be kind of neat. Good idea, folks, everybody, to get to know your notes on the fretboard. So when I'm calling out these notes and asking everybody what's the note is, try to figure it out. There's not a magic pill or a secret that we're not telling everybody to get to know your fretboard. You just got to remember the names of your 6 strings, and then from that point count up. That's the first most basic way. So the 3rd string is the G. You would just count up on the G. G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C. There's no sharp between B and C. B to C, C sharp, D. Now, provided you're not doing any different alternate tunings, the notes in your fretboard are going to be the same all day long. So tomorrow when you wake up, play your guitar, that 3rd string, 7th fret is going to be D. Okay? After a while, you'll slowly start to remember and memorize where certain notes are. And then you could fill in the gaps. If you know that's D and you just happen to remember that, but you don't know what the others are around it, that's okay. If you know D is a landmark, a foundation to start with, if we had to figure out the 9th fret, well, you know D is the 7, D sharp is the 8, E would be the 9. Or if you had to go back to the 5th fret, you know D is the 7, backwards would be D flat, and then C. Okay? It's good stuff. Important stuff, folks. If you want to be a player that takes his or her playing to the next level, try to sweat it out a little bit. Get to know your fretboard. Yep. King 50 saying Guitar Tricks has Fretboard Trainer, which helps too. Yeah, exactly, King 50. That's also in the toolbox. It's called Fretboard Trainer, and it's a game where it has a blank neck diagram, and then it puts a note up on one of the strings and one of the frets, and you got to be quick. It's on a timer. You got to be quick to call out what the note is or select it, and then if you get it right, it'll go to another note. If not, you get a burn. But that's a good thing too, a good little game to play. Good. Thanks for pointing that out, King 50. Okay, so we got the the 5th bar to the 6th bar. Okay, we know that 7th fret, 3rd string is the D. That's going to help take the listener's ear away from the sound of A7 to the D7 sound. Okay, now the D7 shape we're doing here, pretty easy. You're going to bar the top 3 strings with your index finger. Just flat your fingerprint part of it there. And then you can use your middle finger on the 8th fret 1st string, or you can use your ring finger. Sometimes I'll use my ring finger. I kind of tend to do that more than the second one. Whatever one works for you. They're both legal. They're both good. And then the good news is on the rhythm parts, same rhythm for every chord. Down, down, up, up. So the whole lick goes. Okay, might want to camp out on that, do that a few times, because that has a new element in there too. You got a string bend, then you got a slide. That's another technique we want to master as a guitar player. Because if we don't play string bends, hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, vibrato, it makes your solos, even if you play all the good notes, it sounds very stiff. If you do the hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, vibrato, you can add a little nice flair to it. See, that throwing in those makes it sound a little more hip and a little more real than just playing the scale notes and none of those techniques. So all these techniques are really handy to work on. In fact, let me share something with everybody real quick since we are doing some blues stuff here. Guitar Tricks has Blues Level 1 and Blues Level 2 courses, which don't teach how to play popular songs, although the site has a ton of popular songs on it. It teaches you the basics for playing blues. So I'm going to put the 2 links for these here. Then the instructor we got doing those is Anders. Great player, great instructor, very knowledgeable. And it's cool that he's sharing these his ideas with everybody. So that's Blues Level 1. And then let me bounce in. I'm going to give you Blues Level 2 here. Give me 2 secs. And you got to be a Guitar Tricks member to access these. If you're not, go ahead and sign up for the site. I believe on the YouTube video, somewhere in the text there, it might say something like 2 weeks free trial. So if you're not a member, you have nothing to lose. And I know they also have a money back guarantee. So again, if you subscribe and you stay on for a while and you don't like it, I'm not sure how long their refund policy is. It might be 30 or 60 days, but don't quote me on that, but reach out to them, and they're really a great site. Very cool people working there, and they'll help make sure they'll do everybody right. Make sure everybody's happy. Sheepdog Outdoors. Hey, what's happening? Jump in, join in. We're working on some blues guitar, week 5 of 7, and we're working on some little short call and response pentatonic blues licks in the key of A. So we got the bar 5 and 6, everybody, to the D7. And then bar 7 and 8, check them out. That's actually exactly like something we did before. See if you can spot where it's familiar. Mark B, cool. Appreciate you're going to like it. I'm sure you're referring to the Blues Level 1 and 2. Cool. But if you're just starting out to the blues, everybody, don't start with Blues Level 2 yet because it's a lot harder. Start with 1 to get the basics. And the last thing you want to do is start working on things that are way above your wheelhouse, that you don't quite have the chops or the technique yet. That can lead to frustration. So take your time and start with the basics. Learn how to do the power chords for the blues and all the 7th chords that Anders teaches, and some of the riffs and the scales. You got to know the basics first. There's no free pass, and folks that try to skip all the basics and go right into playing shreddy stuff or very complicated stuff are in for a little bit of a surprise and disappointment, because most of the time it just leads to frustration. But take your time. There's no rush. Music and your guitar and Guitar Tricks and your instructor will still be there tomorrow. So just take your time with it and have fun. Enjoy the ride. Cool, Roland. Appreciate it too for the kudos there. All right, so bar 7 and 8, everybody, is exactly like bar 3 and 4. It's this. So I recommend everyone to learn 2 bars at a time. And then once you've got 2 bars and 2 bars down, put them together and you got 4 bars. So the 12-bar blues is essentially 3 sets of 4 bars. So what we've already done is the first 4 bars. That's the first 4 bars. Now we're already into the second 4 bars. So let's work with just those 4 bars, bar 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so we're going to go, and then the D7, and then the next bar. You see how it kind of call response? This one goes kind of ask a question. And then the next part responds back. Okay, try those with the timing. You're going to come in on beat 2, for the first lick, and then the end of beat 1 for the second lick. 2, 3, 4, 1. 1. One more time. 2, 3, 4, 1. Awesome. Okay, now let's work on the last 4 bars. We're going to do bar 9 and 10, 11 and 12. So bar 9 is kind of like bar 1, but it's every note's on the first string. We're going to go 10 with the bend, come down silently, and then go 10, 8, 10, 8 on the first string. And then look at the first note in bar 10. It goes back to the 10th fret first string. So that lick is all on the first string. Okay. And then your E7 chord, it looks exactly like the shape of the D7, but 2 frets higher. So now we're at the 9th fret, barring the top 3 strings with your index finger, and then your middle finger on the first string, 10th fret, or even use your ring. I like to use the ring finger. So we got... Okay, it's always the same, down, down, up, up. Got that? Okay, now we're on to a different chord here, the E7. Okay, this is just a different way of doing it. The E7 has different chords, so the lick capitalizes on the different chord there. What note do we end on? Okay. I'll give you a clue. It's not E, even though E is the root note, but it is a chord tone. That 10th fret on string 1 is a D note. If you know your theory, the D is the 7th degree, the note that makes it E7. Otherwise, if the D's not in the E chord, it's just a plain old E major chord. Sounds in there. It makes it sound a little more folky, a little more bluesy, kind of jazzy. Okay. Let me see what Mark just commented. Warning, free advice ahead. There are several learning tracks and guitar tricks, blues, acoustic, country, rock. Try the free membership and cancel if it's not for you. Cool, Mark. Yeah, appreciate the little advertisement there, or endorsement, actually. So we got the E7, the last lick, plays a chord tone. So aside from the root note of a chord, folks, other really good notes to land on when you're finishing a lick are obviously the scale notes are good, but you kind of want to try to end on a chord tone, a note that's in the chord that's being played at the time, because it makes it sound more musical, more melodic, and makes it sound like you know what you're doing. Because the last thing you want to do is end on a note that's not even in the chord. See how that sounds? Or maybe see how that A sounds? It doesn't sound like it fits the chord too good. Kind of conflicts. So try to find chord tones. Yeah, even though the G sharp's in it, actually that doesn't sound as good as the D. So that works in that case. All right, and then let's go ahead and check out the lick in bar 11 and 12. Okay, bar 11 is totally different than anything we've done before today. But it's exactly the last lick we did from last week. That part, we're going to play all of that exactly the same way, 1 octave higher. So what I mean by octave, it's the same notes, but 12 half steps higher. Okay? So the first note was an E. We're going to jump down to the 3rd string, 9th fret, start there. And we're going to basically play that little Albert King blues box, the upper 5 notes of your pattern 2. Okay, so the lick goes 9 on the 3rd string, 8, 10 on the 2nd, Then we got 8 on the first string. Now look, the 8 has 2 little arrows pushing up, right? Yeah, right there. Okay. And then notice above the arrowhead, what does it say? Above the arrow tip head, it says 1/4 or a quarter. Okay, that's a quarter step bend. So on the quarter step bend, it's all right. Let me back up for a sec. We talked earlier tonight about a full step bend. That's 2 frets. So a 10th fret bend up. A whole step would be the sound of the 12th fret. A half step bend would be to bend to the note 1 fret higher. So if we were to bend 10 up a half step, it would be that. But a quarter step bend is the note between the note you're on and the next fret up. So the only way to hear that is to play the note you're on, like 10 on the first string, and then 11, and then try to bend up to the note that's higher than 10, but lower than 11. Hear that? It actually sounds out of tune, but listen to this. The 8th fret is the one we're going to shoot for. So 8 would be, 9th fret would be a half step. We don't want that. We want the quarter. We don't want to go that high because it sounds a little too happy. And we've heard these out of tune notes, these little blues notes, the flat third, then up a little bit. Sometimes also we'll hear them do that with the flat 7. You'll hear that too, where they bend the 7th degree of the scale up a quarter step. Okay, we've heard those, let me put it in quotation marks, out of tune notes so much in the blues that we've come to accept them, okay, and as part of that style and that genre. And it does create a little tension, which is going to be nice to resolve. Usually after those out of tune notes, usually you hear the resolve. Okay, now both of those 8s go up a quarter step, but you notice the arrow only goes up, it doesn't come back down. So we need to bend it up. And remember what I was talking to you at the top of the lesson tonight, when you bend the string up, you got to touch it with your pick on your right hand, your pick hand. So when you let the note down with your finger on your left hand, we don't hear it. We don't want to hear this. We don't want that. We want this. It's all about touching it with your right hand pick or right hand fingers. See, you can use your fingers to mute the strings as you're picking it when you want to keep it silent. And then the chord we answer with that is the A7. And now if you play the last 4 bars that we just talked about all together, you hear the call with the E7, and then the final one resolves it. Okay. Yep, a clean resolve, Mark, exactly. And now let's talk about your tone for a sec. We don't want a lot of distortion. This actually sounds really nice with a clean sound or just a hint. Like right now, I've got it on my Axe Effects. It's on a Blues Junior setting with just a little whisper of overdrive, a little crunch. But that way, when I play softly, you can really hear the quality of the chords. We don't want to have an abundance of distortion that just kind of clutters up stuff, especially on 7th chords. Overdrive and 7th chords kind of don't really work together. They sound kind of messy. So when you're playing the bluesy rhythm stuff, try to have a cleaner sound and just use the overdrive to help you with sustain and give you a little bit of that cool sound. So just a hint of the overdrive. And And if you play softly, you'll notice it sounds really clean. But if I dig in, it breaks up. That's the kind of thing you want. You don't want it to be soft and it just sounds really distorted, because then when you play hard, it's going to sound very messy, distorted. Okay, so keep that kind of clean. And then in terms of your pickups, I've been using the bridge pickup the whole night, but this also sounds really great if you got humbuckers or even on a Strat, to try playing it with your other pickup combinations. Like, you've heard me do it on the bridge pickup. Now let's hear it on the combination of the neck and the bridge. Yeah, I like that sound too. It's kind of doesn't have as much bite, but it has a nice chimey bell sound to it. And then I'll try it on the neck pickup. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 1. The neck pickup sounds very fat and juicy, kind of buttery sounding. So experiment with your tones there, folks. Gives you some nice variety. And what's neat to do, if you've got last week's under your fingers, cool, Nick. Right on. Jimmy Ding Dong. Not familiar with Jimmy Ding Dong. What's neat, if you got week 4 down, put them both together. And I do this with my students a lot. Once they've got 4 and 5 down, we find a good backing track and try to play it over it. We're trying to build a little blues tune here. So it's kind of nice also to think in terms of orchestrating your parts, to put them in an order that kind of builds. So I recommend starting with week 4 first, because it's lower on the fretboard. Okay. And in week 5, do that as the second half, because it goes higher. It kind of builds excitement. It kind of builds the anticipation in the track. So let me play week 4 right into week 5 back to back for everyone. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. See how that works? And then if you got a little solo, that's going to sound nice too, maybe, but you probably want to have a backing track that you can play it over. We're going to actually look at something solo-wise in week 7. Next week, we're going to touch on going back to some rhythm guitar works, but a little bit more complicated than what we did on the first couple lessons here. We focus on just basic rhythms like that kind of stuff, or a riff. Okay, next week we're going to get a little more complicated with things and do some more notey riff ideas up here, rhythm guitar stuff. So that's what's coming down the line. Let me just kind of touch base on the comments here. Mark's saying, I've been working on last week all week. Excellent, Mark. Wow, I'd love to hear it, buddy. See, that's the thing with these YouTube classes. You can hear me talking and playing and chatting, and you guys and ladies can make comments, but I can't hear you play. So I can't really help you in too much detail unless I do a one-on-one lesson with you. I do live one-on-ones with Guitar Tricks. You can also reach me or book a lesson with me through my website, davecelentano.com. And in those lessons, in fact, some of the students, the folks that show up in these YouTube classes that comment are some of my own private students. And we're making good progress because I can get to see them play and work. I can give them tips and pointers. A lot of times when we're starting out and trying to do everything by ourselves without a coach, without someone to, hey, wait a sec, why don't you try this fingering in this spot? That might be a little bit easier. It's nice I like to show my students some options and let them decide what works better for them. And then, just kind of eliminate any bad habits that one might be starting to have. Because the last thing we want to do is be practicing something for a while and not realize that we're doing it wrong. Because it's a lot harder to correct it after we've been doing it the wrong way than it is just to nip it in the bud and get it right off the top. So, Mark, yeah, at some point, man, it'd be cool to hear you, and I could definitely help you and give you some other curriculum to work on too, and point you at some other stuff to do in Guitar Tricks. Let's see. J Mac is saying great lessons. No worries, man. Glad you're here. Better late than never. You can always watch the whole thing after the fact on Guitar Tricks YouTube channel. You can watch all the ones I do, and Mike at Guitar Tricks also does a Friday night YouTube session. You can watch them all after the fact, like reruns, if you like, catch up on it there. He's saying good settings on, I'm late, good settings on amp and pups. Would appreciate an approximate if you can squeeze it in, no rush. Good settings on the amp? Well, I think what you're saying, J Mac, is the good settings in terms of your tone. I was just kind of talking about that. I usually, excuse me, I keep my treble kind of up at about, if you think about the knobs as clock face, I usually keep my treble up around 2 o'clock, the bass a little bit less at about 11 o'clock, and the mid somewhere around 12 o'clock. That's a average, and you can always tweak them to your liking, but that's kind of where I start with. And depends on what guitar too. The Les Pauls tend to have a really bassy and woofy sound. So I don't want to have a lot of bass in the amp setting because it's already getting it from here. I like the guitar to be a little more mid-range and cutting. And then the overdrive, I usually keep that also tailed back too. In fact, let me look at what the settings are here. Yeah, it's pretty much what I just said there. I got my treble is actually at 3 o'clock, mid at 12 o'clock, and the bass is actually at about 12 or 12:30 on this. And then the overdrive or the drive output drive channel is at about 1 o'clock. So it's not a lot. And that's on a Blues Junior amp. So it might not be exactly that same idea for your amp, but there you go. Yep. And Russ says, good info and tips. You're very welcome, Russ. Yep. Mark, yeah, cool. Anytime. And you can always, if you're a Guitar Tricks member, I've on their forum, you can just email me. I've got a lot of threads in my part of the forum. You just kind of scroll down. All the teachers, most of the teachers have an area you can write them individually, and you find mine way at the bottom there. Chris K saying this lesson are great. Thanks, Dave. Cool, man. Glad you like it, Chris. Right on, Roland. Can't go wrong with lessons from Dave. Thanks, Roland. He's my Jerry Garcia student. Looks a lot like Mr. Garcia. Yeah, Jack or M Jack. Yeah, cool. Definitely rewatch. Yep. Yes, what are the amp settings? Yep, I just kind of went over them. For this type of stuff that we're playing here, this is what I got. And and I don't have any effects on it. There's no tube screamer or overdrive. It's just amp with a little bit of reverb. Oh yeah, a little bit of reverb too. Yeah, because without the reverb, it sounds very dry. So there's just a little splash of it in there. Yep. All right, cool. Steve in New Hampshire. Yep, I'm going to wrap it up, folks. Cool. Richard, Danny, you're welcome. Thank you. Appreciate the kudos. Nick's saying, cool. Good deal. Nick, glad the tones are sounding good. Yeah, going through the internet, it always, oftentimes, it compresses the sound. So sometimes the tones aren't as good. In fact, if you look at my YouTube channel, I've got a ton of videos I put up over the years on that. And what I do with my audio is I usually run that separately and sync it up with the video after the fact. And I use Logic to do that. So that way the audio you hear on my YouTube videos is not coming through the mic in the Mac computer or my standalone mic next to me here, but it's actually direct from the XFX, and it just makes it sound really good. But unfortunately, in these YouTube live lessons, we can't do that. So sometimes it gets kind of squishy sounding. Appreciate it though, Nick. Yep. All right, cool. King 50, yep, very welcome. Terry, cool, thanks. Yeah, you're welcome. Yep. All right, so everyone be cool. Have a great week. Next week, we'll go over what we did today briefly and then go into some other, a little more detailed, complicated rhythm ideas for some rhythm guitar in the blues, some riffs and stuff. And then when we're done with this 7-week course, going to fish out something else, maybe blues related, but it'll always be something that can help everybody with their guitar playing. So glad everyone enjoyed it. Have a great night. Everyone, peace, and keep them fingers flying. Keep practicing. Don't ever stop, man. Guitar will always be there for you. It's a fun, relaxing thing to do. So enjoy it. All right, everyone, take care. Good night. Bye.